No, not again. Bear with us. Hope that's not a sign of things to come. I can only apologise for that noise. Beyond my control, I'm afraid. How are we all this morning? Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all feeling well. It's a damn shame you're not all in the studio with me today because, got to be honest, I smell amazing. Seriously. Seriously, I could sit here and sniff myself all day. I do smell fantastic today. Kind of wasted over the airwaves, but there you are. Let's have a look. Can't hear any noise. I was playing music and the music got stuck. I don't know exactly what happened there. Morning, Jim. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Gary. Good morning. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen's here somewhere. Where is he? There you are. Good morning as well to Mr. Cullen. And a very good morning. Well, it's a landmark today, actually, and I know that somebody, it was Gary, I think, has put it in the chat. Yes, today's a landmark. A certain Mr. Peter Haddock turns 50 years old on this very day. Doesn't look a day older than 49. All joking aside, Peter was one of the people that supported me when I switched from magazine journalism to the live streaming. In fact, he was a guest on one of my very, very first shows. So many happy returns, Mr. Haddock. Have a great birthday. And if I don't see you before, I'll see you at Hillhead. And on the subject of Hillhead, we do have a bit of a preview for you a bit later on in the show, so stick around for that. Good morning to Joe Brown Construction, all the way from the US of A. Good morning to Jim Turner, all the way from Wales. And good morning to Andy Hare, who says, blow me down if it's not Friday. Yippee! I get the impression that Andy Hare sits there basically looking at the calendar, praying for Friday to roll around. Good morning to you. Have you found that JCP deodorant? I haven't, but I'm sporting this today. This is not an advert. I'm not being paid for this. Zara, if you are out there and would like to sponsor the show, we have some manly men here. They'd love this sort of thing. There you are. Does that come through? You seeing that? Green Savage. I've got to be honest. Listen, I realise I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but I do smell amazing today. Dan Cullen says, do you smell of new machines? Even better than that, if such a thing is possible. Ken Hatcher says, happy birthday, Peter. I thought you were older than me. No, you're just mature. That's all it is, mature. Dan says, need to get him on the show again today. The door is always open for Peter. To be perfectly honest, we kind of, after ConExpo and everything that went with it, we kind of came together. And then because I stuck to doing the live stream and Peter started doing his video thing, we kind of came together and then kind of did that again. Our paths do still cross. And I spoke to him just last week, actually. So, yes. Joe Brown Construction just reminded me he is in Philadelphia, PA. Yeah. Good morning to you. Let's have a look. Any no, I won't blow you down. Not sure what that's all about. Jonathan Duras is here. Dan Cullen says, well, Mark, you are a savage. Well, sort of. Chris Ford says, I have the slight odour of diesel. Yes, love the smell of diesel in the morning. Sure, I did that line yesterday. Peter McKenna's just joined us. Morning, Peter. Good of you to join us. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Shall we crack on? Because we've got a packed show. One of the videos I was planning to show you today was quite short. So I've managed to shoehorn in a bonus film. So today's show is going to be pretty much full, I would think. So let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show very much on the road. It is Friday. Andy here. It is Friday. Friday, as they say in some parts of the world. Friday, the 24th of May. Well, do excuse me. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, we're off to Italy for some superb high-reach demolition. Volvo continues its electrification mission. JCB gets in the game, and we're surface mining with Wirtgen. Plus, Case gets set to put the E in Hillhead. It'll make sense when we get there, I promise. What is the chat doing? Somebody just said a thing. Jim Turner says, he smells of a mixture of diesel, muck, haylage, and cow shit. Not sure if it'll ever catch a bottle it. Get Johnny Depp to advertise it. You'll make your fortune. Did I do that intro? Yes, Dan, I did do the intro. As always, it's the opening bit of the show, and I reckon about 25 seconds into it, you're there. You're there. Yes. And we'll come to it at the end of the show, but there does seem to be quite a lot of support for Baxter's Soup from north of the border. Very much a Heinz man down here in the south, but we'll come to that in just a moment. But before we get to all of that, we do have, as always, the small matter of today's mystery machine. So let me play this. I will come to that in just a moment, but I didn't read these comments. Today's question, which I'll remind you of in just a moment, is talking about canned soup. Gary Muirhead at 10:07 a.m. said, question of the day, his answer is Baxter's Royal Game Soup. He says. Literally at the same time, 10:07 a.m., Steve Williamson says, question of the day, Royal Game by Baxter's. Yum, amazing. Never had Royal Game Soup, but apparently our two Scottish representatives believe it is the way forward. We'll be having a look at that. I may need to go and find myself some Baxter's Royal Game Soup. Kind of fancy some soup right about now. I did promise you we were going to do a mystery machine, and I'm a man of my word, unlike many in this industry. Never mind. Here we go. That's what you've got to work with. I think we can probably figure out that is an excavator. So don't bother telling me that. But what I'm looking for is a specific make, and I'm looking for a very specific model as well. Can't really tell you much more than that, but that's what you've got to work with. If you've got any suggestions on what that might be, looking for a make and a very specific model, because it is a very specific model. I'm going to just tell you that our friend Andy Darvellis just said, morning. Andy, you couldn't have timed your arrival better, because the first film we've got is some high-reach demolition, and I think you're going to love it. Gary Muirhead has gone for the Komatsu PC340. Tis not. Ken Hatcher has gone for Komatsu PC130. Tis not. Dan Cullen has gone for the Lugong 924. Tis not one of those either. Footy, who is also in our new look intro as well, just to let you know. Jonathan Duras has gone for the PC210. It is none of those things. So keep those guesses coming in. Let me take that away, because while you're figuring that out, I do need to remind you of the question of the day, and it looks a little bit like this. Yep, our question of today, food-related yet again, comes once again from that bottomless pit of intrigue and curiosity, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And his question is this: what is your favourite variety or flavour of canned soup? We already know what Gary's is. Baxter's Royal Game, apparently. For reasons that become clear, I have several answers for this. I believe that Heinz tomato soup is a high point in human evolution. I really do. Just one problem. It gives me absolutely chronic heartburn. So my other two choices, both Heinz, mushroom soup on a regular day, had it yesterday, and cream of chicken if I'm feeling a bit under the weather. And regardless of the flavour, I have to dunk bread in it. It's the law, regardless of what my wife says. Anybody else using soup as a dunking vehicle, would love to hear from you. Going back to our mystery machine. Let's have a look. Jonathan Duras, I think we said that, PC210. Gary Muirhead, gone for the New Holland E20 215B. It is not. Peter McKenna is going for. No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted that one. Priestman Mustang M120. It is not. Jim Turner's going for a JZ140 LC. It is not. And Dan Cullen is going for the JCB JS 200. Steve Williamson going for the Cabelco SK210 LC. None of you are right. So let me show you a little bit more. Oh, see, dead giveaway. Bit of linkage, bit of bucket. Yes, I'm sure you're all steaming towards the keyboard right now. Our friend Craic is from CSW, CSW Groundworks, and he too is part of our new look intro. I say new look, it's more or less exactly the same as it was before, but just got a few more names in it because we have a bigger audience these days, or a bigger regular audience. Well, we have a bigger audience all told, but we have a bigger audience of regulars as well. Lee Upton, stand by your beds, people. Lee Upton. Lee, I should watch my P's and Q's now that you've arrived. Good to see you here, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in. If you've got any ideas on what that mystery machine might be, I'd love to hear from you. And while you're about it, please let us know. Let us know what is your go-to canned soup. Love to hear from you. Let us know in the chat. We'll come back to that after the show. I'm going to take that away for a moment because, yes, it's time to crack on, and we've got some really nice high-reach demolition coming up. Okay, people, we all know, I think, by now, what I think of all things Italian. Their food, best in the world. Their men, best dressed in the world. Their women, my opinion, most beautiful in the world. Their demolition's not half bad either. That took a while to end. Don't know what it is about the Italians, but they even managed to do demolition with a certain flair, don't they? Yeah, absolutely. More questions, more answers on our mystery machine. Let me show that to you right now. What have we got here? Dan Cullen is going for the Lugong 936F rather. Jonathan Duras is going for the Sumitomo SE200, bit more recent than that. Lugong 915 says Dan Cullen, and he's also going for the 913 FCR. I can tell you, it is not a Lugong. In actual fact, somebody is, well, I think a couple of people have actually mentioned the brand, but it is not a Lugong, and I can tell you, Steve, it is not a Shantway. A Shantway. I don't know what it is about that. There's something about that word just makes me sound a bit camp. I don't know. Gary Muirhead says, is that some squib machines I've seen hiding in that video? Could well be. There's 2 million quid's worth of it out there on the loose. Somebody commented on my post on LinkedIn about it. If you can lose 2 million quid's worth of equipment, maybe that explains how you ended up going bust in the first place. But who knows? Demo Dove says, lovely big push at the end, lovely working by the sea, and love a job by a road. Keeps it interesting. Yeah, that was actually shot in Puglia. In actual fact, it was shot in Bari, which is in the Puglia region. One of the places I really want to see. So no, we've got no good answers or no right answers on our mystery machine. So with that in mind, let me show you a smidgen more. There you are. See, there's every possibility that somebody's looked at that and gone, yes, I know exactly what that is now. I'll be astounded if that's the case, but you never know. Keep the guesses coming in. I can tell you several people have mentioned the right make and mark. They haven't mentioned the right model. It's not a Shantway. It's not a Lugong. I'll tell you that much. So let me take this away because I do need to do a bit of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Peter McKenna's gone for the Cat 366. It's not a Cat at all. Craic has gone for the JCB JS 130, not a JCB either. Keep the guesses coming because you're all quite a long way off at the moment as it stands. Now, I am starting to think, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, I'm starting to think that Volvo is on something of a charm offensive with its electric machines at the moment. Over the past few weeks, the company has produced a series of films highlighting the positive experience of electric with customers around the world. And we've got another one for you today. So, electric skeptics, you might want to look away.
So we're a family business. My grandfather started the business back in the 60s. There's 4 different demo companies. And over the years, those have kind of consolidated into 3 of them now. My parents started Robles One back in 08. So we are at about 15 years now. So we work all over Texas. We also are licensed in Louisiana and New Mexico. The power and the performance of the machine compared to a diesel, I would say it still has about the same amount of power. We usually try to leave them charging overnight, so that way we get a full charge in the morning. This machine will last us about 4.5 hours at full power, using it nonstop, tracking back and forth, moving steel, moving plaster, moving heavy material. So we're still trying to tweak, different ways of charging it to kind of make the battery last, put in less power when they're not at tracking. So that way you can kind of conserve the battery a little bit longer. We ended up getting a Bellatron, that's a boost charger. So with that, we're able to charge it for about an hour and get up to that 80% power range. So that'll kind of get us through the end of the day now, where before we're only getting that first, 4 hours before lunch, an hour after. Now we're able to maintain another extra 4 hours, after lunch, getting us through our whole workday. So the advantages that we have now is that, we can go into these buildings that have never allowed us to take, diesel machines in there, even with scrubbers, and performing this work twice as fast now. Where it would take, 20 guys to perform this task without the machine. Now we can go in there, with, 5-6 guys and do the same job, less price, be more competitive, while still getting the job done in a timely manner and within schedule. Purchasing the EC18 was getting the first demo package model. A lot of these machines are going to come from your factory, just regular cab, they're not going to have all the cylinder guards and the cab guards. That kind of helped me make that decision a little bit better, knowing that we didn't have to modify it at all. It came with what we needed.
Mighty impressed with that. I've been saying for quite some time, the idea of actually having machines working inside, soft strip, that kind of thing, makes perfect sense to me. I want to say good morning to Monash Demolition, who have just joined us over on Instagram. And I can tell you, we do have a winner. We do have a winner on our mystery machine. Before we get to the winner, there's Craig going for a JCB JS 130. It is not. Jonathan Duras went for a PC 228LC. He's got the right make, got the wrong model. Jim Turner got the right make, wrong model, PC 130. Chris Ford miles away from a New Holland 385C series. And let's have a look. Gary Muirhead went for the PC 360 LCI-11. All very, very good guesses. Steve Williamson has gone for the PC 135 US. But, and it took him 2 bites at this, I'll tell you now, Dan Cullen got the right answer. He initially went with this, Komatsu HR215LC. And then he had a bit of a think about it, and a minute later he came back and said, it's the Komatsu HB, not the HR, the HB215LC, which is precisely what it says on my bit of paper, because it is the JCB 215 hybrid. That's what we're looking for. And just to prove that Dan knows his onions, And his Komatsu, there you are. HP 215LC hybrid from the mighty Komatsu. So well done, Mr. Cullen. Not only are you now world famous because you are part of our intro, you also know your stuff. Well done, sir. Let's have a look. Steve loved the machine wrap on the Volvo machine. Quite rightly too. Let's have a look. Jonathan Dura says that was hot. I totally agree. Again, I'm not here to sell electric machines, but I think one of the things that we're missing in our enthusiasm to dismiss electric is looking at those applications where even diesel cannot work. To do a soft strip, it's a manual job because you can't sensibly operate machines indoors if they're running on diesel. If they're running on electric, knock yourselves out. Absolutely brilliant. Apparently the hitch and grease point on the dipper was the giveaway for Mr. Cullen. Well done, Dan, says Gary Muirhead. Well done indeed. We'll come back to soups. We'll come back to soups in just a moment because we do have something else coming up that I'd like to show you. So, you know how you get home after a long day behind the levers? You have your dinner, kiss the dog, stroke your wife, switch on the TV to forget all about plant and equipment. Alternatively, you could fire up your preferred games console and drive a JCB machine from the comfort of your own living room. Yes, coming to a games console near you anytime right about now. Now, since that was a very short clip, I've managed to squeeze in a bonus film. And we'll be back right after this word from those fine folks at JCB.
Hi, I'm Georgina Williams, aka JCB Digger Girl, and you're watching The Breakfast Show.
Yes, thank you, Georgina. Very, very good to see you. Hope you're fitting well. Let's have a look. Steve Williamson says, on Farming Simulator on PS5. Love the game, he says. Dan Cullen says, that's cool. We'll come back to Peter McKenna a bit later on because it's quite a long one. But since that was quite a very short film, I've managed to squeeze in something else. You know how whenever we talk about autonomous machines, we talk about the potential of them jeopardizing human jobs? Well, as it turns out, there is a halfway house in which the machines are autonomous, but the operator is still very much involved. In fact, the operator is probably more involved than ever before. Take a look at this.
My name is Mark Piotto, and I am the Vice President of Sales at Teleo. Today, we're showcasing one operator running multiple vehicles simultaneously.
My name is Scott Lyons. I'm the owner of Tomahawk Construction. Really have just had a hard time getting people into haul trucks. Ever since we have installed the Teleo units on the trucks, we haven't had one sitting. It lets us expand who we would typically hire for a haul truck. So today we'll see one operator per 3 trucks.
Behind me, we have Max Bogaz operating multiple machines autonomously. Max and I are sitting in Fort Myers, Florida, but the trucks are in Naples, Florida. Solving this problem is a game changer for Scott and Tomahawk.
He's able to switch between cameras on each machine. While one's dumping, he can go ahead and let the excavator take off with that truck, get it in the midst of autonomous mode, And once it takes over, he can control the third truck.
My name is Max Bogaz. I'm an operator here at Tomahawk Construction, and I am the first operator in the world to run multiple ADTs at once. Right now, I'm running 3 off-road dump trucks in one of our job sites down in South Naples. I just heard the horn. That means I'm good to go. Come over here, and I can hit the A to B button to where we're dumping at. Can put it in autonomous mode, and it will drive itself, and then I can switch back over to the other truck and pull it up to the 870 for it to get loaded.
I told all of the OEM manufacturers that I wanted a autonomous option. Teleo is really giving us the only option to date, right, to make it happen.
Excuse me, that kind of harks back. I don't know if you remember, but that was a point made by Bobcat's VJ Nerva on yesterday's show. Your colleagues don't show up for work? No worries. Autonomous machines have got you covered. Who fancies having a go at that? I know I do. Steve Williamson says that is pure awesome. The future is already here. Bring it on. See, we'll come back to Steve's part-time job as a gamer, but that's the approach. You imagine. I mean, I would imagine, Steve, I'm not saying you jump ship and leave Scotland to head off to America, but somebody with Steve's skills and his relative youth and the fact that he knows technology, I reckon he'd walk into that job, no problem at all. Mostly diggers. Garvin's just joined us over on Instagram. How would you know if you left the handbrake off or if it's driving itself? I'm sure there is plenty of sensors on there that would inform you just about that. Well, it'd be good to on big jobs, no one around, but what about building sites? Again, horses for courses, I would say. What an ace name for a company. Yeah, we over here, we do tend to go for the simple, don't we? You know, Mark Anthony Demolition. Tomahawk, that's a name right there. Absolutely. Sitting all that way from the action, what happens if something goes wrong and I can't hear the noise it's making? All good points, but it's all part of the game, isn't it? Mostly Diggers says, happy Friday, folks. Happy Friday to you, my friend. And I'll see you next week. See you next week in Volvo land. Speaking of Volvo land, we were talking just a moment ago about JCB actually joining the gaming revolution. They've got an equipment pack for one of the online games. And Steve said he does, what was the game he played? Farming Simulator he plays. And he follows a guy called DJ Goham. DJ Goham, I met him, funnily enough, at Volvo last time I was there, which I think was 2022. This is him.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's DJ Go Ham. You are watching The Breakfast Show.
You are watching The Breakfast Show. Yeah, absolutely. And smashing fella. Really was good fun. We had a right old chinwag. Peter McKenna says he doesn't need to leave Scotland. He can drive the machine from the comfort of his own armchair. Not entirely sure how the Americans would feel about one of their machines starting 5 or 6 hours before they were actually ready to wake up. Have you got any idea on what you may be seeing at Volvo? Well, they are planning a launch, which I'm guessing will be a more extensive F-Series launch. That's the 29th. Obviously, we're going to be there. I think we're there 27, 28. I can't actually remember the dates off the top of my head. So I'm expecting to see that. But I'll let you know just as soon as I know. Here's how my brain works. Volvo says, would you like to come to Sweden? And I say yes. Not why, not what are you going to show me, not where am I going to stay? The answer is yes. No question about it. And I've got exactly the same thing with Bobcat. Bobcat said, do you want to come to the Czech Republic? Yes. Yes, I would. Good points, but it's happening and everything you are all saying has already been put in place way before they are put out to work. Yet. I think sometimes that gets lost in translation, you know. Things like, you know, what about the fact that you can't hear an electric machine? Well, put some sound on it. They've thought of that. You know, things like, you know, you can't hear the machines. Well, you can sort that out. Things like you can't feel. There are haptics in those levers. You can feel that every bit as much as you can sat right there with the machine. And I know because I've done it. I've actually been there and done it. Badly, because I'm a keyboard jockey and not an operator, but somebody like a Steve, and absolutely, I mean, I'm saying this about Steve because he's one of our younger members, but anybody that could drive a machine could jump on that, what looks like a simulator, but is actually a direct link, and you would be able to drive those machines without batting an eyelid. Steve says apparently it will be EC145 and EC160 upwards that will have the new design. Apparently the only one not changing is the 140. That was a guy from SMT. Not sure if it's true. That does sound about right, to be perfectly honest. As you said, I think you said yesterday or the day before, we have seen the 50-tonner already, which is a kind of a hint at what they're going to be showing. But I'm expecting a lot of that. But certainly the last time I was up at Eskilstuna, they had new machines. They were primarily focused on, there was a high-reach demolition, a straight boom demolition machine, but there was also a lot of electric machines. But it was literally a case of, here's almost one of everything we make. Go have a play. I'm hoping that's going to be the case again. Chris Swell says, I'm waiting for are they paying you 3 months' wages to drive that, or I'll only do that for double dollar? Yeah, I think we did have something along that. Dan Cullen actually said, but what about rates? What do you get equivalent on 360 ADT operator? You're only doing one job. You're in that seat for, off the top of my head, 8-9 hours a day. You're only doing one job. I don't see why the rate of pay should change. I would like to think that he gets some sort of bonus is probably the wrong word, but some kind of additional, because he is doing something relatively complex. Not only is he managing a machine, he's managing multiple machines and managing the way in which they're sequenced as well. So I'd like to think he is getting a bit of a dividend. But yeah, Peter McKenna says some gaming systems have more realism than real life itself. I 100% agree, and you would be astounded the number of times I fall for that. I spend a lot of my time. I spend a lot of my time searching the web for videos to bring you. When I'm looking on platforms like YouTube and Vimeo and various others, the number of times I see something, oh, that looks fantastic, let's have a look at that. And it turns out to be either a simulation or it turns out to be an RC, a remote control model. The excavator I'm looking at thinking that's massive is actually only that big. Steve says, when I can get it to play, I would do that job. He's probably on a decent rate. We get more for working GPS. Yeah, quite right too. Yeah, you've taken on an additional responsibility, much the same as your man there over at Tomahawk. I'm sure that would be, I would like to think that's exactly the same over there. Yeah. Keep those comments coming in. We already know what our mystery machine is, so we don't need to dwell on that. So while we're mulling all of that over, let's have a smidgen of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
When I think of mining, I think of long, dark tunnels, hundreds of meters below ground, guys with torches on their hard hats, canaries sniffing the air nervously. Obviously, I'm living in the past. Pretty sure the canaries have now been pensioned off, and sometimes they don't even bother going underground for mining anymore. So buckle up, people, because we're off to Nebraska.
Here we're operating the Wirtgen 280 SMI in Lewisville, Nebraska. We're mining limestone, which is an extremely hard material, but the machine's performing very well, actually exceeding our production levels. At this certain job, we're cutting two different types of materials. So we're cutting a shell layer that's kind of embedded in between the limestone. With this machine, it allows us to kind of selective mine the material, so in layers. So with the two different kinds of material, in the shell layer, we see upward around 1,000 tons an hour. And the harder material, we average probably around 400 tons an hour. The Wirtgen 280 SMI has approximately a 9-foot drum, which we can cut up to 22 inches. We typically run around 20 inches in the waist and sometimes as much as 12 inches in the rock. Currently we're running this machine 24/7, 5 to 6 days a week right now.
When we're in the harder material, it's averaging between 9 and 12 foot per minute. And then when we get up into the waist area up there, it can go between 20 foot per minute to 40 foot per minute.
Another one of the great things about the Wirtgen 280 SMI is that we can avoid the drilling and blasting. The crushing part has been eliminated also, and we're allowed to direct load from the ground to the truck. So there's a huge cost savings along with the environmental advantage to not running all those other pieces of equipment.
One of the features that I like the most about the cab is rotating from left to right. It's just awesome. The windshields are really perfectly placed. The walks on the cab are right to where you can see anything that you need to see with just a touch of the pedal.
We've spent time with a lot of the other manufacturers and other mining, and this being an upcut machine, the way it's designed, the fact that it uses all the weight of the machine as it cuts, it surpasses the production levels of the other machines that we've had experience with. So support here with Wirtgen, they've been great to work with. They've been a team helping us get this machine rolling. Support phone calls all the way from service to the sales division, all of them have been great to work with. I think Wirtgen surface miners are going to be a game changer. We can go after the stranded reserves, the things that are hard to get to, around residential areas, and a lot of times the drilling and blasting is just not, you can't do it anymore. And with this machine, we're able to get close with minimal amount of dust, minimal amount of noise, no vibration. There's tons of unmeasurable advantages to running a surface miner like this.
I did have a follow-up to this, but I'm going to go to Steve Williamson, who says that your videos really show how far advanced it is around the world. We are such a smidge compared to the rest of the world, and we're lagging behind. This is something that occurred to me, must be about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. I saw something on, I think it was on LinkedIn, where a company had basically developed a robot for breaking out refractory linings in steel production, and they'd basically gone to 2 or 3 different companies that were involved in that, and they'd worked with them to jointly develop a machine. It's a remote control, a bit like a Brock, but slightly different. They developed a machine with the industry to do that. We know that Caterpillar is working with a couple of Australian mining companies to develop hydrogen technology with them. Komatsu are doing exactly the same, and I think they're working in Australia as well. Where is that here? And when I say here, I don't mean just here in the UK, although that would be a good starting point. But where is that happening within construction and demolition? Going back, you've all seen the Jumbo that is operated by the fine folks over at Despe. And good morning, Stefano, if you happen to be watching. That was a joint development. They took a Caterpillar machine, although it took a lot of Caterpillar involvement to get the machine off the ground. But then between Caterpillar, Despe, and Larini, who actually did the conversion, they basically developed that machine together. I wouldn't say that's a unique thing, because it's not overly dissimilar to what Craic do here in the UK. But why are we not seeing that? And I know this is a bit of a bugbear with our friend Jim Turner. I know Jim is looking very, very closely at speaking to more and more manufacturers, particularly JCB in this instance, about coming at machine design and machine development from the operator's standpoint and advising. Why are we not seeing that? You know, I realise that if Caterpillar signing a deal with an Australian mining company to develop a hydrogen fuel solution, be it a hydrogen fueled face shovel or a hydrogen fueled hauler fleet, you're talking multi-millions. So I guess there is a degree of, well, maybe that's the way forward. We will work in partnership to develop this together, and then, but ultimately, we'll put that out into the world. So why aren't we seeing that? But think about that from a demolition point of view. And I've always said this: I don't believe that the major OEMs, the JCBs, the Caterpillars, the Komatsus, I've never thought they are particularly good at producing one-offs. But when you look at something like Demolition, there is a real market out there for a high reach, 30, 35 meters, tilting cab, all the protection, everything else. Why aren't Komatsu, Caterpillar, Volvo, Liebherr sitting down with a bunch of select demolition contractors saying, okay, we're going to develop a 30, 35 meter machine. What does it need to carry? How big a tool does it need to carry? What protection do you want it? Where do you want the cameras? How many cameras do you want? And then produce a base machine. Why are they not doing that? And is it down to cost? I'm guessing that is exactly the case. You might sell 20, 30, 40 of those demolition machines and make yourself a few million. You do the same thing in mining, you're going to make yourself multi-millions. Just wonder. I think that's a really good point, Steve. And it does sadden me that I do feel like we are being left behind. And I also wonder about the mindset here. I often get the feeling, particularly when I'm in the States, and a lot of you guys have been to the States, so you'll know what I'm talking about. I get the impression in the States that they're a bit more keen to try something new. Here, and I think this is evidenced by the overall reaction to electric machines, to the initial reaction to tilt rotators, and the initial reaction to quick couplers, and the initial reaction to electric machines. In the States, it's here's something new. Oh, something new. Let me have a look. Let me have a try. Let me have a play. Here, it's, that will never catch on. That will never work. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's good. Why? Why are we like that? Garvin says you really need 24/7 type operations like mining to make a proper move, advance in power systems engineering advancement. It's a point. But here's the thing, right? I've said that precise thing, okay? If you've got a demolition project that we are currently doing top down. So you take a crane, you lower some mini excavators or MIDI excavators on the roof and maybe a skid steer, and you go around, you basically eat your way around the perimeter, fold it in on itself, and then drop down the floor and carry on. So you are doing the same thing time and time and time again. You could program that. I get the impression that if you showed that to an American demolition contractor, he'd go, oh, I've got a job coming up. Could we trial that? But I also think that here in the UK, if somebody said, we could program that, client won't like that, health and safety won't like that, our operators won't like that. That all sounds a bit hard and a bit difficult, and I don't know what it is. Steve says mindset here is anything new, they all try to find a fault. Why? I've no bloody idea. Not me either. What I find really strange is, where are we? We're 725 shows into this thing that we're doing, and whenever I show anything new, everybody, the thing, the comments light up. That's hot. That's Chile hot, Mexican hot, El Paso hot, and all that kind of thing. Leave it a couple of weeks and then show it again. I'm not sure about electric because of the charging, and I'm not sure about hydrogen because I don't know how we're going to get it, and I'm not sure about GPS because it's another thing to learn, and I'm not sure about tilt rotators because that makes you lazy. Fuck's sake, people! This is there. It's there, and Steve made this point earlier on. Do you honestly think that somebody like that Teleo company that we saw earlier with their autonomous, I think they call it monitored autonomy, do you really think, bearing in mind what a ridiculously litigious place America is, do you really think they're going to let that loose in the wild without having covered all the bases? Do you really think that they've not thought of every single eventuality, including Wi-Fi going down and, solar storms and everything else? They've thought of that because they could not operate otherwise. Because like Tesla cars, these things are under intense scrutiny because they are new. They're under intense scrutiny, and people are hoping and praying that they will go wrong. They cannot afford for that to go wrong, because if something went wrong with that Teleo system and one of their haul trucks ran off into the road and ran over a school child or something like that, you would be talking about life in prison and billions of pounds in fines, or billions of dollars in fines. They've thought of that. Good morning, Hargrave Demolition. And apologies, you've arrived in the middle of me ranting. We're only humans. What more do you want? Let's put people out of work. No, I don't want people out of work. I don't want people out of work. But I've just finished writing about this, and it really has got my goat, because as an industry, we have consistently, and I do mean consistently, failed to attract new people into the industry. I know we always refer to young people because that seems to be what we believe to be the future. We have, for 35 years, I've been writing about a skill shortage, and at no point in that 35 years have I ever said the skill shortage is shrinking. We're getting over it. It's not happening. In addition to that, we are in a situation now where an awful lot of people, represented by this show, I hasten to add, a lot of people will be retiring soon and taking their knowledge, their expertise, and their wisdom with them. So what do we do? Do we all sit here and basically say, well, in 20 years' time, construction will just stop because we haven't got enough people that know what they're doing? Or do we develop a technological solution to it? I hark back, and somebody mentioned this the other day. I think it may have even been Peter McKenna talking about the Hillhead plant with the Ford cars. Cars used to be hand-built. Some of them still are, but cars used to be hand-built. Even the Fords and the more popular cars, they were hand-built. But people don't want to work in factories. They find it boring. They've got better things to do with their time than sitting there putting a screw in a hole and tightening a... So what did they do? They used robots for it. And yes, at the time there was that's awful, we're going to lose all these jobs. There were no jobs because people weren't bloody doing it. People weren't doing it. And yes, there were some redundancies back in the day, but you've got to move with the times. Mostly Digger says there's definitely a general let's give it a go, take the leap, be bold mindset over in the US. Always open to new ideas. More an opportunity perspective than a risk perspective. That's exactly it. In America, it's like, how could that make me better, safer, faster, more productive, more profitable? Here, it's what can I find wrong with it? What can I find wrong with it? And I have to, I'm not going to name names here. I went to see the launch of a zero tail swing excavator. I'm going to guess it would have been pre-COVID. And I was there with, 20, 30 press. And it was a zero tail swing machine. And we had it presented to us and we had it demonstrated to us. And then two notable journalists stood at the back looking at it, looking at the tracks and looking at the body of the machine, trying to convince themselves that it wasn't a zero tail swing, that there was an overhang. If there had been an overhang, it would have been roughly as thick as that. Who does that serve? Why are we trying so desperately to find things wrong? I don't get it. Peter McKenna says that if a solar storm with enough magnitude hit, GPS electronics have the potential to fail. So they fail. And does anyone honestly believe that they haven't built in a fail-safe? If there's a solar storm and things go fuzzy, kill it. Kill it. Don't even wind it down, kill it. Stop everything right here, right now. We've got dead man handles and dead man switches on machines already. You lift that lever up, your machine stops. Do you not think they've thought of that? Really? No, it's not out of bloody work. Nowhere can get good employees as you used to. So why employ idiots and burn money when you can get more advanced equipment? Most of them are bloody useless. Like I said before, workers need to up their game or you'll be left behind. That is the point. That is the point. If you are genuinely concerned about being made redundant as a result of autonomy, don't blame the autonomy. Look at yourself or look at your company and look at the way that they are embracing technology, because there will come a time. Think about this. Think about this from, let's use a demolition example. And I had this discussion with Stefano Panseri just a few months ago. If you want to guarantee 100% site safety, take men and women out. Just take them all out of the site, put them a mile, 2 miles, 100 miles down the road, get them to operate everything remotely. And you can guarantee to your client that building will be down on the floor in this amount of time and there will be 0 accidents. There will be no incidents, accidents, slips, trips, falls from height, and no fatalities. Simple as, because there is nothing. There are no people there. There is nothing that can go wrong. And exactly the same with autonomous machines. If you program that autonomous machine, you can tell your client down to the last second a hole from face to hopper and back again is going to take 45.6 seconds every single time. There will be no lunch breaks. There will be no breakfast breaks. There will be no additional training and the cost that goes with it. There'll be none of that. And when that machine needs maintaining, it won't rely upon an operator doing or not doing their daily checks. The machine will go, hang on, what? I'm feeling a bit peaky here. Can you sort the thing out? All of that goes away. All of that goes away. And if you're not thinking that's a good idea, you're kind of getting left behind. I don't think there will ever be enough people to fill these roles. In 2022, the CITB predicted that we would need 250,000 more people in construction by 2026. This year, they've come up with exactly the same number, 250,000 people, only now they've moved the goalpost to 2028. In 2 years, they and the industry and everybody associated with it have not dented that skill shortage one iota. Is that going to improve in the next 2 years? Is that going to improve in the next 10 years? It is not. We're not attracting enough people, in which case, what do? Do we just stop? Do we just accept that construction has gone the way of British shipbuilding? Or do we find another way of doing it, a more efficient way of doing it? Two operators want too much money and some are not reliable or fit for operating plant or working on a site. Listen, here's the thing. You guys are, and I do have another film to play you, by the way, but I'll get to that in just a moment. You guys are out on site. Look around you. Look around you. If rather than the name of the company you're working for on the machines, imagine that it was your name on the side of the machines. Now look at the people that you've got working around you. How many of those would you employ? Seriously. 80%, 90%, 5%, 10%? If you go autonomous or if you go remote control, you have got 100% control over the quality, productivity, safety, performance of everything you do. What's the expression? The weakest link and that kind of thing? The weakest link in most projects are the people. I know we refer to them as our greatest asset, and I do believe that to be the case. But if you've got a weak link, if you've got you've got an absolute fucking gunslinger on the controls of an excavator, and he is a proper operator. He's meticulous, but he's quick and he's steady and he's rock solid. The sort of guy you'd want working alongside you. But you've got one ADT operator who's a bit of a tit. That operation don't work. That excavator operator could be the best in the business and he will still get less done because he is working with a numpty. Take the numpty out, replace him with an autonomous machine. All of a sudden, you've got full productivity. That's what I'm saying. Jim Turner says we're putting folks out of work consistently since we stopped using picks and shovels as our prime digging machines. Yeah. I mean, think about that. It's a really good point. I made the point actually about, when we moved from steam to diesel, I'm sure there was outcry. We're now doing exactly the same thing with the electric and with hydrogen as well. But think about if you had to dig the footings of a house 70, 80 years ago, what were you talking about? 10, 20, 30 guys with shovels, flat caps, fag on, donkey jacket on. Now, one mini excavator, one bloke. We've been doing that all along. We've been doing it all along, and it's made us more efficient. The next step in that evolution is to take that man out, put him somewhere safe, and let him oversee machines that are doing their own thing. Mostly Digger says, even if we magically get the vast numbers of workers we need in the morning, we don't have any houses for them to live in. We don't. And Steve, this is one of those things that somebody has said to me that will really stick in my head. When I mentioned that thing about the CITB a while back, last week I think it was, about that we need 250,000 workers, Steve, quick as a flash, said, we don't need 250,000 workers. We need 250,000 good workers. Because if we got, if all we've got, and we all refer to them, seat warmers or whatever it might be, warm bodies. If all we employ are warm bodies or seat warmers, this industry is going nowhere. It's going absolutely nowhere. It's if anything, it's going backwards, and other parts of the world and other industries will just fly on by. Thanks for reminding me about Halewood. I've posted a link on WhatsApp. Thank you very much indeed. 3 years I've worked GPS, only been down 2 days out of 3 years. You still can work. You can do another task. There you go. Solar flares, Wi-Fi outages, Bluetooth connectivity. 2 days out of 3 years. Compare that to rain. How many days has the industry lost because it's been tipping it down with rain, or because it has tipped it down with rain? 20, 30, 50 over the course of 3 years, possibly even more than that. Steve, 2 days out of 3 years. You lose more than that, just the diesel turning up late or a manufacturer failing to send a replacement part. 2 days out of 3 years. Steve, you should be doing this job. You shit way better than I do. I think unless you know someone in the industry, you ain't got a chance of getting your foot on the ladder. And I wrote a piece last night. Probably won't be published for a week or two, but I wrote a piece last night about my concerns over the shrinking knowledge pool within this industry. I won't bore you with it because I do want to get to this final film. But my premise for it is, you've got a bunch of people working in the industry now. Never mind those that are coming in new that need to be taught, but the people that you've got here now. So if you move jobs, you go from contractor B to contractor C, and you take what you know with you. So you take some knowledge, but you also take some baggage. And that baggage kind of infects or permeates that new company. But you have basically taken that knowledge from there to there. There's no new knowledge here. There's nobody's brought in anything new. You have just got that stuff that you learned, you've just shifted somewhere else. And at some point you will retire, you'll decide you've got something better to do or whatever it might be. So our knowledge base, which started out as that big, is now that big. And that's happening all along. And I'm not having a dig, but I likened it to the way in which organisations like the National Federation of Demolition Contractors work. If you follow the proper route, which is still largely the case, it's not always, but it's largely the case. If you follow the proper route, you become a second vice chairman of your local region. So London and Southern, Birmingham, or Midlands and Welsh, or whatever it might be. So you become a vice chairman, which you do for 2 years. 2 years later, if you're lucky, you become the chairman for 2 years. If you're lucky, you then become the second vice president of the whole country for 2 years. If you are lucky again, you become vice president for 2 years. If you are lucky once again, you become the president. That's 10 years of one brain with all its preferences and prejudices and all its fixed ideals, 10 years in which that mindset has permeated that industry. And it gets worse, because if you are the type of person that enjoys committees and meetings and all that kind of thing, there's every possibility that you could then cling on and go on to become a member over on the National Demolition Training Group. And you might end up as vice president and then president. It's another 4 years. You could then hop over to the Institute of Demolition Engineers, where you could serve as second vice, and you could end up with the same mindsets effectively driving the industry for 20 years, which is great if the person that's doing that is permeating that industry with their mindset is forward thinking. You know, they've got their finger on the pulse, they're willing to accept new ideas, they're willing to explore new ways of doing things. That's fantastic. What if they're not? What if they're a complete fucking dinosaur? That means that for 20 years, the direction of travel for the whole demolition industry in the UK is being driven by a T-Rex. Thanks, Steve. Exactly, he says. Rather than paying an operator £22 an hour to drive a machine, with automation, you can now pay software engineers and computer technicians upwards of £50 per hour, upwards each. But I think that's a flawed argument, because if you pay a computer tech £50 an hour to develop a system that will run your operation, you've got that operation forever, or for as long as the project lasts. Even if you paid them 100,000 quid to devise a system to take down a building that you could replicate, the alternative is to be paying gangs of guys £22 an hour until they retire. It's cheaper. It really is. I've got two guys, one speaks English, the other don't, and they can't listen. They don't know what they're doing, but they're good guys. Again, not an issue. Not an issue. You know, think about all... I know people have been throwing up obstacles in the way of autonomy. But think about the obstacles that we have. We've already mentioned the numpty factor, you know, somebody that's just, you know, they've got their card somehow and they are now allowed on site and they're allowed on a machine. We all know that not all of them are up to scratch. We also know that we've got a lot of migrant labour. They sit there in a toolbox talk with their eyes glazed over because they haven't got a clue what's going on. They can't, and that's fair enough. You know, if somebody delivered a toolbox talk to me in Italian, I wouldn't understand a bleeding word either. I'm not criticising them for it, but that toolbox talk or that health and safety briefing, if they don't understand it, there's another potential break in the chain. You know, there's somebody within your team who may not have grasped the job that they're supposed to be doing or the safe way to proceed. That's another failing. It's another weakness. You put in autonomy or you put in remote control, all of that goes away. All of it goes away. You have no weak links. Steve says, if everyone on here had their own machine, you'd spec it out so you don't employ 4 men. Bigger profit for yourself and more done. Yeah. When you look at proper, and I do mean proper owner-operators, I always make the joke when you see an owner-operator and he's got 17 LED lights around his machine and he's got the deluxe hypersonic seat and all the things. Partly, it's because that's the guy's office and he's going to be spending 9, 10, 11 hours a day in that machine. But also, he wants that machine to be as good as it can possibly be, because his livelihood, the food on his family's table, the roof over their head, depends upon that machine. Back in the day, and I think there's still a degree of this, back in the day, there used to be sort of specialist finance packages to encourage somebody to, you know, they leave school, they get their initial cards, and then they buy themselves. Back in my day, it used to be a backhoe loader. You'd go and buy yourself a 3CX or something like that, and you would set yourself up in business. You look at them now, we're talking absolute decked out, kitted out, fully loaded Liebherrs and Volvos, the absolute creme de la creme of machines with the absolute creme de la creme of attachments, lighting packages, GPS, tilt rotators. They've got the lot, and they've not got the lot so they can go down the pub and, hey, look at me, I've got the king of the castle. What they're doing is they're investing in the machine because that machine will give them a return. And if that machine, Steve has made this point so many times, with GPS and tilt rotator, you can do more. Simple as. I will take no argument on that. I don't care whether you're the best old school operator in the world. If you've got GPS and a tilt rotator and a quick coupler, you can do more than the average operator. It is as simple as that, which is why so many times you see an owner operator. I want the best machine I can possibly afford, and I want all of the bells and whistles that go with it. Bradley, the plant operator, has just joined us. Please feel free to join in. You're a plant operator. I'd love to hear what you say. Gary Muirhead, prime case for the use of tilt rotator. Just have to Sweden, the home of the tilt rotator. Amount of workforce on the ground is minimal because the machine, the operator, is doing 90 to 95% of the work. Take that. Take that as a you. If you're in the cab of a excavator on a groundwork site or a house building site, whatever it might be, you are pretty secure. You know, unless you have a funny half hour and decide to drop the machine on its head, you are pretty safe. You've got ROPS, FOPS, you've got your seat belt, you've got your comfy seat, you're vibration protected, you've got all of that. On your site, who is the person in danger? It's the guy out there who's putting sticks in the ground and measuring the depth of an excavation and stuff like that. Take him out. Take him out. Just get rid. If your machine can tell you when you've dug deep enough, if your machine can tell you where to dig in the first place, get rid of the guy. And all of a sudden, your safety record goes from there, which is currently very good, to there, which is absolutely bloody great. Mostly Digger says, wants top trade-in resale values too. Again, it's a valid point. Thank you for that, Garvin. Owner-operators, yes, they do want max trade-in value when they do get rid of their machines. But if they're holding that machine for 3, 4, 5 years, they want the absolute dog's doodahs. The mutts nuts, as they say, because it sets them aside from the competition. Peter McKenna, yes, but Steve is capable of working without GPS as modern workforces change. GPS will be the norm, and all they will be able to do is operate with only GPS. As soon as GPS fails, your machine operator is useless. Who cares? How, I'll make the point again, how is that any different to turning up? And Peter, you've had this recently. You've turned up for work on a Tanner machine, which we were all raving about. We all thought it was fantastic. It went wrong. It went back. You weren't working. Where's the difference? Where is the difference in that? Trucks are mainly now automatic. The next generation of truckers can't operate a manual truck if they were required to. Why does that matter? I learned to drive in a manual car without power steering, with wind down windows, no GPS, no ABS braking. What else didn't it have? No sat nav, none of that. My car now has all of that. Why? Well, and my car now is automatic, partly because I'm lazy, but also, why would I not? Why would I not? I'm sure you've all seen this cartoon. I've got another video to play. Fucking hell. There's a cartoon of a guy who is fighting with a bow and arrow, and behind him is a salesman selling a machine gun, and he's saying, "No, I haven't got time for that. I'm busy fighting a war." That's what we're talking about here. You know, if business is war, you want the best weapons at your disposal, do you not? Jim says it's all right having autonomous machines, but they are too specialised for a lot of sites. They can't dig, load, spot differences in ground conditions, slab, lay bricks, curb, lay block and floor, block and beam floors, concrete. The list goes on. Well, they can lay bricks. Absolutely, they can lay bricks. Can't dig and load? Yeah, I think you'll find they probably can. Can they lay curb? Yes, they can. You can slip form a curb. Yeah, of course you can. I was writing out slip forming of curbs 30 years ago. It exists. It isn't a problem, really. I tell you what, let me stop. Let me stop, because I do want to get to our final film of the day. And we're already an hour and 10 minutes in. Ye gods, people. Let me roll this. The Hillhead exhibition is set to open its doors in 32 days. 32 days, a month and a smidge. The organisers are currently prepping the quarry floor and the hall road. The exhibitors are finalising arrangements to get their kit into the showground. And one such exhibitor is Case. Word on the street, they will be bringing one or more of their E-Series excavators with them. So, just to whet your appetite ahead of next month's show, here's a glimpse of what you have to look forward to if you find yourself on or around the Case stand. Going to go over to Footy, who says, Case actually gave me a personal invite to the show, see all their new equipment. Unfortunately, had to turn it down because I can't make it. He also says, if you put all of that stuff onto a machine, he strongly recommends going for a self-grease system. Again, it exists. You know, bearing in mind the numpty factor, which we've already discussed today, do you want to risk your machine seizing or having a premature breakdown because it's not being greased properly, despite the fact that you've told the operator, or put auto lube on it? There you go. It's done. It's done. Machines don't make money if they aren't working. If an operator can't do the job, the machine doesn't move. Okay, no, I see where you're coming from. But one machine can't do all that, but one man can. And that's why people are worth money. Please understand. Listen, if we did away with construction workers, I'd be sat here talking to myself. I don't want that. I really don't want that. But what is the alternative? You know, if we have consistently failed to attract enough people to do the job that we need to do, then what is the alternative? Just let the industry wither and die? Or do we find another way? And that's, in some ways, that's one of the things I find most frustrating, is the fact that construction and demolition companies, when pushed, when backed into a corner, they will find a way. They are problem solvers. They really are. You know, I remember maybe 20 years ago now, there was a building in London that was coming down. I think McGee did the job, but the thing had basically been cantilevered. So they built it from the top, and they basically suspended the floors off a central column, if you can imagine. If they had tried to take that top down and taken the top tier off, the whole thing would have fallen down. So they basically reverse built it. They took the bottom floor off first, then the first floor, then the second, and they basically worked their way up. Ingenious. And they worked that out for themselves because that was a necessity. Well, we have another necessity. We have a necessity that we don't have enough people to do the work. And I do wonder, and I don't think anybody's ever published the facts and figures on this. We in at the same time that we have a skill shortage, we also have a housing shortage, which never goes away either. I think the last time I saw, I think we're supposed to be building somewhere between 250 and 300,000 new homes per year, basically forever, because our population is growing, people are living longer, and so on down the line. Has anyone ever done the maths and said, I realise that the planning system in the UK is terrible. I realise that house builders have a nasty habit of sitting on plots of land until the price is right for them to turn them into homes and all of those sort of things. But I wonder, is there a correlation between the skill shortage and the housing shortage? If we could, as the CITB has suggested, if we could come up with a magic wand that gave us 250,000 decent workers tomorrow, could we do away with the house crisis? Could we? I'd love to know if anybody's ever seen that. Chris says, I'd love an automated plumber at the moment. Might even get my barn conversion finished. Yeah, I haven't come across one of those yet. No, I've done that one. Gary Muirhead says, one thing I found with GPS here in the central Scotland belt in the hire market is that hirers want GPS systems but don't want to pay for it. And some of the site engineers are scared of it. The not wanting to pay for it, I mean, same as it ever was. I think that is basically the way that machine rental works. And until there is sufficient demand, they can pick and choose and so on down the line. Site engineers being scared of it, and I do think that is currently a stumbling block. I attended an open day that Leica held for Skanska 2 years ago, probably thereabouts. And they had a bunch of apprentices. I say apprentices. Some were apprentices. Some of them were already employed properly within the company. I reckon there was probably 20 or 30 people at this Skanska Open Day hosted by Leica. And speaking to them, and they were all somewhere between, 20 and 28, thereabouts. Male and female, good old mix. None of them use pen and paper anymore. Everything was computerized. When people were talking about real time transfer of information from site back to site, this wasn't. Well, that's interesting. Or what if the Bluetooth goes down? What if the Wi-Fi goes down? What if the guy gets his laptop stolen? None of that was a problem, because the people of tomorrow, they're in positions now, but they will be in more important positions in the not too distant future. All of them have never known pen and paper. And why would you go back? Why would you go back? I mean, Steve sent me a photograph this morning of his setup with his screen. I can see the site out in the background. Do you really want to be consulting drawings in the pissing rain, or do you want to look at a screen where an engineer has programmed that system for you to follow and for the machine to follow, so that you don't overdig, you don't overwork, you don't over-travel, that you get it precise and you get it right first time. There's no need to go back and do it again because you did it right the first time. Steve says, all around the world they are advancing hugely. UK, more concerned, get PPE for women, green beacons and boxing rings. It's funny you should say about the PPE for women, because I do wonder now whether that is a distraction. I've written, without blowing my own trumpet, I am writing like an absolute demon at the moment. I'm normally an article in front. I think I'm 5 in front now, because I don't know, there's just my brain is just on overdrive. I don't know whether it's the new tablets I'm on, whether the fact I'm drinking less coffee. I don't know what it is, but I'm producing a lot more. And I actually mentioned the PPE for women. The premise of the article that I've written, and it will be out in a few days or thereabouts, is, have you ever come across the expression, the reality distortion field? Reality distortion field, I think it was originally coined to describe Steve Jobs, the head of Apple. And Steve Jobs had what they refer to as this reality distortion field. So if you went to him and said, here's the facts and everything else, he, through a mix of charisma, bluff, bluster. He would basically overwhelm you to prove that even though what you were telling him was 100% correct, that it wasn't. A great perpetrator, and I say use the term great perpetrator in advisedly, Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I am the most popular president in American history. He's not. He said that the US stock exchange opened again to show the resilience of America, opened again the day after 9/11. It didn't. He said he would build a wall and get to the Mexicans to pay for it. It didn't. It's bluff and it's bluster, and that's all it is. As it stands at the moment, we have a skill shortage, which I've already mentioned. We've got a major shortfall of people. And as it stands at the moment, the best estimates that we can get is that women make up about 15% of the industry. Now, rather than thinking, okay, if we could wheedle out the sexism on site and ensure that female excavator operators wouldn't be wolf whistled, would have somewhere decent to go for a leak, wouldn't arrive for work to find a dildo stuck to the front of their machine. If we could ensure that, we could increase the number of people within the industry, bearing in mind they represent about 51% of the national population. We could have an influx of women. We could cure the skill shortage. Instead of doing that, because that's quite big and that's quite challenging, we are being deflected and distracted by PPE doesn't fit women very well. Women have boobs and their PPE doesn't fit them. It's a distraction. You ask any woman, ask Katie Kelleher, you'll know her, you interact with her over on LinkedIn. Ask her, what is the biggest challenge facing women in the construction industry? And I guarantee she will not tell you that it's high-vis vests that don't fit her tits. Sorry, Katie, I didn't mean to. I've mentioned tits again. But I guarantee you speak to any woman in this industry, the biggest problems facing them is not, I guarantee, not the size or the cut of their PPE. It's a nonsense and it's a distraction. And it's doing damage to a very, very worthwhile campaign. We do need more women. We absolutely do need more women. Based on my experience of traveling around the world, particularly Japan, some of the best operators I've ever seen, women, little tiny women. So don't give me that nonsense about, they're not as strong as men. What the fuck do they need to be? They're sat there pulling bloody powered levers. They don't need to be strong. They're reliable and they're meticulous and they do the job properly. I've been very sweary today. I do apologise. I don't think that'll ever happen, says Dan Cullen. A good engineer, says Steve Williamson, will adapt to GPS and machines with no problem. I think a lot of it comes back to mindset. I for years, and I realise this is, by comparison, this is a minor thing. For up until 5 years ago, I guess, I was a Microsoft Word user. I was a Microsoft computer user. I had Windows and all of the things. And my son Fred kept on telling me, Mac is better. We don't get viruses. They're faster, they're better, and blah, 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 blah. And for years, I would sit here and say, but it means I've got to learn a new system. I've got to learn a new way of doing things, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be a problem, and I'm quite old, and I don't really want to do new things. And in the end, he said, you're crazy. Get yourself a Mac. Got myself a Mac. Bearing in mind, I still run Word on the thing, which is the program I use most often. I think I asked him probably 2 questions on how to do things. There was no learning. It's a bloody computer with a keyboard. It's not that hard, and all my fears, all my concerns, all my obfuscation, all my obstacles that I threw in the way were nonsense. Complete and utter tosh. Melbourne Concrete Constructions just joined us. Are you in Australia, Melbourne Concrete Constructions? Love to think you are. Welcome. Good day, even. It's probably evening where you are, but if you are in Australia, welcome. Footy says, a friend of mine, digger driver, they said to him, we sprayed it all out for you. He said, what do you mean spray it all out for you? He said, I'm colourblind. I can't see the damn colours. What do you mean? Then so GPS would actually come into its own in that man's case? Yeah. Yeah, it would. It would. And I mean, bearing in mind, I mean, we've had this discussion. I mean, Peter McKenna is bereft of a leg. Footy has a few mobility issues, so he has his ladder in his cab and various other bits and pieces. Imagine all those workers that have been pensioned off because they'd taken an injury or they'd become disabled in one way or another. So rather than sending them out on site where they've got to traipse across, and we had this issue early doors with Peter, I think it was it Hinckley that he went to, or was it HS2? I can't remember. One major project where he was basically kept waiting while they did a medical, and they were concerned about risk assessments because of his missing limb and so on down the line. Could he get out of a machine if the machine caught fire? All valid arguments. I mean, tosh, but all valid arguments. So what about if rather than sending Peter to a muddy site where perhaps he might struggle to get in and out of a machine, where he might be at risk of a fire on a machine, send him to a control station where he can sit there with his foot up, operating machines at a distance. No fire risk, no trip hazards, no problems getting in and out of the machine, because guess what? He sat in what effectively is an armchair. Steve Williamson said, Steve, you and I think we generally agree on most stuff, but yes, thank you. Well said. Have a great day, guys, says Dan Cullen. Lovely weekend, getting ready for the trip home. Yes, all the way back from Yorkshire. Now, I will... beer's getting a bit out of hand. Yes, where was I going? Yeah, no show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No show Monday because it's a bank holiday. No show Tuesday, Wednesday because I'll be in Volvo land with Garvin over on, well, not just Garvin, but I'll be there. Al Grierson's going to be there as well, I think. So I'm going to catch up with him as well. Ken the Digger Man just joined us over on Instagram. Weren't you here? And now you're there? I don't know. So yes, no show. First 3 days of next week and the first 2 days of the week after that, no shows. But I promise you have my promise that when I come back from all of those things, I'll have new stuff and hopefully some bits and pieces to give away as well. So keep watching for that. Apologies for the swearing today. Not really that swearing normally. Don't know what came over me. Maybe I'm just secretly angry. I'm always angry. Just cover it up really well. So yes, go people, go do your thing. I do need to. Let me end the show here. I don't think there's anything else to discuss. So I'm going to play the outro, and I won't be here when it comes back. So everybody, have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you on Thursday. I'll see you on Thursday next week. So look after yourselves until then. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which gives you plenty of scope. Put your thinking heads on and let me know what else we need to discuss, because I do feel like we've kind of set the world to rights today. See you Thursday.